What an epic week it has been for the NBA playoffs. Expect the unexpected. That's definitely been the case. We'll start off with the first of three upsets. The Blazers beat the Spurs last night outright as 11.5-point road dogs to tie the series up at 1. Victor Wembanyama left in the second quarter with a concussion. He's going to try and play Friday, but we don't know what his status will be. But the story of the game was Portland and Scoot Henderson. Scoot with 31 points. They pick up a road win before they head back to Portland. Here's Scoot on getting the road victory.
You were pretty locked in from the opening jump there. Was there a moment that you felt it? Pre-game, locker room, warm-up, during the game? When did you realize you had it tonight?
When I woke up.
What? Elaborate. What went through your mind? What, you woke up and did what?
I woke up, brushed my teeth, went downstairs, got dressed for shoot around. I say right after I brushed my teeth, going downstairs. Yeah.
So why then? I
don't know. It's just a feeling. I get it. Kind of just telling myself the night before, like, just attack. Like, they can't mess with you. So, yeah, that was my goal, to come here and attack, get downhill, play hard, and whatever happens, happens.
Mitch, Victor's in concussion protocol, but is he being examined for anything beyond that?
No.
Did he have to go to the hospital, or was he x-rayed here?
I don't believe any of that. I just know he has a concussion and he's in the protocol, and will obviously take the proper and appropriate steps.
Very questionable for the next game for the Spurs, as they have to win now in Portland to get this series back on track for them. Meanwhile, maybe even a bigger surprise yesterday came when the Philadelphia 76ers beat the Boston Celtics as 13.5-point road dogs, 111-97. Actually, not all that unusual for Boston. They do tend to have a letdown or two when they make a big playoff run, but maybe the biggest surprise in the entire playoffs is this young guy, VJ Edgecomb, 30 points, 10 rebounds, youngest player to put up 30 and 10 rebounds in a playoff game, passing Tim Duncan as they get ready for Game 3 in Philadelphia on Friday. Here's Nick Nurse on the team defense.
We just played much better team defense tonight. You know, like when any action, let's just say a pick and roll action's happening, you know, a lot of times you're focused on the two people in it, but it's still a kind of a 5-man job to defend it, right? And we just weren't in the right. We weren't moving. We weren't in the right stances. We just weren't in and out the other night, and tonight we were. I thought we just made more, just kind of basketball reads, really, of when it looked like something was about to happen. We had somebody closing down the gap a little bit. I mean, it wasn't near the amount of straight line drives tonight. Everything. They did get some drives, but every one of them were kind of slow and threw a couple people and contested at the rim, even though they did make a few.
You lose a quarter by 11, you know, that's tough to come back from in a playoff game, you know, and you take a look, a lot of those points were stuff that we can get better at. I think they had 6 or 7 offensive rebounds in the second quarter, you know, that they converted for either layups or 3-point shots. Thought we got some good looks, didn't, and you know, then puts more pressure on your D. I thought some of the other stuff, like you said, the Grimes threes were important. You know, those we did a good job on him in game 1. You know, he made us in game 2. So just that stuff that we can control, we get better at.
Meanwhile, if the Boston Celtics want to get back on track, they'll have to win in Philadelphia. The Los Angeles Lakers can close out their series. How about this? By winning against the Rockets 101-94, they've now won both games at home. They've been underdogs in both, and they're 2-0 against Houston. LeBron James, 28 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Kevin Durant came back, but it didn't look like Houston stood a chance in this one. Maybe the Lakers could even get Luka back at some point. Here's LeBron on picking up the win.
It's nothing. Series is not won until you win 4. It's the first of 4. But our only mindset is game 3. The game is always played in between the lines, and that's all that matters. We have an opportunity to play the next one, and that's all you can ask for. We're in the postseason, and to have an opportunity to play another playoff game, we should be excited about that, but we also should make sure we take care of our bodies, too. That was a hard-fought game, We got tomorrow, and we got to fly down to Houston on Thursday and get ready to play on Friday. So.
And obviously, you weren't there for game one. What are you just saying overall with the offensive execution and how y'all need to improve that on that end?
We're just not making shots, to be honest. We're not shooting the ball well. We're getting good looks. We're missing a lot of layups. But yeah, I just think that's the difference in the game. They making shots. You know, Smart was the guy that knocked down shots for him today, and Kennard too. But last game, Kennard got it going too. And they shooting the ball well. You know what I'm saying? So we got to cut their water off, but we also got to be aggressive to knock down our shots too.
A couple of more days before Houston takes on LA. Meanwhile, Oklahoma City will be back in action tonight. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander won the Clutch Player of the Year. Never knew that award existed until today. 2 games tonight in the NBA, including Oklahoma City playing, and also Detroit plays Orlando. Feels like it's been forever since Detroit played Orlando. Strange schedule, as always in the NBA. All right, it's official. The Mets are officially in big trouble. They lost last night, 12th straight time. They blew a 3-0 lead. The Twins win as road dogs. Devin Williams melted down in the 9th inning in this one, giving up a couple of runs. And so now the Mets become possibly a team, if they make the playoffs, the first team ever, because no team has ever in Major League Baseball lost 12 in a row and made the postseason. So have they hit rock bottom? Here's Francisco Lindor answering that question.
Players that we expect change for the offense with Washington back.
He's going to help us a lot. I said it from the beginning. He's a guy that every lineup wish they had, and we have opportunity to have him here. So we can't wait for him to come back and do his thing. At the end of the day, I just don't hope. I hope everybody doesn't put all the pressure on him, because it will be a little unfair. But I know he's going to help us tons. You know, it's top 3 hitters in the league.
If Soto can help the Mets win a game this weekend. Meanwhile, nobody paying attention to the Phillies losing all these games because the Mets have lost so many in a row. The Cubs beat them 7-4, winning as home favorite. Shota Imanaga, 7 innings pitched. He gets the win. Nico Horner, 2 for 5 with a home run. And also Kyle Schwarber homered, and so did Bryce Harper. But it didn't mean anything because they ended up losing. So the Royals' losing streak, by the way, is finally over. They snap an 8-game losing streak. And Royals win, and they beat the Baltimore Orioles. The Giants beat the Dodgers 3-1 as home dogs. So Giants win over LA. Landon Roop had a nice start there. The Yankees shut out the Red Sox in their rivalry opener 4-0 as they continued to play that series again today. All right, in hockey last night, boy, the Tampa Bay Lightning really needed a win against the Montreal Canadiens, heavily favored in the series, and they do, and they needed overtime. In fact, double overtime. The series is now tied at 1. The Bruins even their series with the Sabres with a 4-2 win. How about the Mammoth? They pick up a playoff win, first ever, 3-2 over the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Colorado Avalanche should take care of business against the LA Kings, and they're on their way. They win 2-0, and the series in the NHL Stanley Cup begin again tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always fun to catch up with Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. Gonna really break down everything happening in the NBA. And Sam, I know, follows this very closely. He'll be locked onto his couch tomorrow, watching the Knicks and Hawks. We know that. But Sam, some intriguing, NBA awards and such this year. We had the play-in games and the opportunity to vote on awards while games were going on, which sort of goes against what the NBA was saying, is that these play-in games were kind of playoff games. But if that's the case, how did they allow this to happen? And we had the Rookie of the Year potentially involved in this. What do you make of this whole scenario? And, I got to tell you, I kind of feel like this is the last time we're going to go through this. I feel like the NBA's got to change this going into next season.
Yeah, I think that's a spot-on observation, Craig, because it really stems from the fact that you have this new rule in the NBA. And the NBA in general has been trying to basically year by year create new rules to combat a few issues where the regular season doesn't matter as much. So then, okay, they go ahead and add play-in games to make the end of the season more important. Okay, that doesn't work. They go in and add an in-season tournament to make the season even more compelling. And then they add a 65-game rule requirement for players to meet. So to basically incentivize them to play more games or they won't be eligible for awards. It's because we've had that patchwork of new rules and corrections and changes that we're now in the scenario we had last week where The voting typically for regular season awards is due before the playing games start. Those playing games aren't supposed to be taken into account, whether it's consciously or subconsciously by voters. But because of that 65 game rule this year, and you had two players, Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham, appeal the fact that they weren't going to be eligible. They had extemporaneous circumstances where they wanted to be eligible for the awards. The NBA had to give itself time to figure out whether or not they would be eligible. That created this 48-hour window where those playing games actually overlapped with the voting deadline for awards. The deadline was pushed back. Voters were told not to take it into account. But you had a lot very vocal about how they actually couldn't help themselves because it's only human nature to take it into account. I think Kendrick Perkins talked about how it was going to influence his vote. Rachel Nichols talked about it. Bill Simmons, other people with awards votes out there. And what we saw was it really did impact voting. I took a look at the prediction market data, which tracks the voting on awards, and Rookie of the Year was really the most interesting one, where all season it's been Cooper Flagg or Con Knueppel, kind of a 50-50 race, so close that the favorite actually flipped 4 times in the last week of the regular season. So it's really the biggest market where no one knew what actually voters were going to decide. Then you fast forward to the day before the play-in. Con Knueppel was playing in a game against the Miami Heat, and that game wasn't supposed to count. His performance wasn't supposed to be taken into account. The odds for Con Knueppel actually shot up a little bit before the game, with some people thinking maybe voters will take it into account that he has a really good performance tonight. What people didn't anticipate was that he would have a terrible, terrible postseason debut, again, in a game that wasn't supposed to count. By halftime, I think he was about 2 for 10 from the field, and his odds plummeted all the way down to 32%. So, in the morning he was 50%, and then half of a game later that wasn't supposed to account, 30%. By the end of the game, Con was benched. He went 2 of 12 from the field, and Cooper Flagg by that time was a 70% favorite to win the award. Again, a guy who hadn't played a game in over a week is now shooting up in the odds. So it's really interesting to see how the betting market activity actually changed on these games when they weren't supposed to count. And you got another guy who was up for an award in Denny Avdia, also played in a play-in game that night. He actually had a really good game. He had 40 points. He had over 12 rebounds, 7 assists, just a great performance. That wasn't enough to directly influence the voting. His odds only shot up a little bit. So what we're seeing is kind of a mixed bag with how much things actually impacted it. In some award markets where it was really a tight race, voting probably did get impacted by these playing games. And again, that was something the NBA told voters not to do. But like you mentioned, Craig, because this is kind of a weird year where they had this new rule, where they had this thing they had to allow for, that created this opportunity, and one, again, that the NBA will definitely try not to repeat next year. So whether that's them changing the 65-game rule, whether that's them changing the voting timeline, it just seems like something they didn't take into account, but definitely is impacting decisions. And we'll know who won Rookie of the Year maybe in about a week or two. The NBA hasn't announced it when, but when they do announce it, it looks like it'll probably be Cooper Flagg. When the season ended, it was probably a coin flip, maybe going to be Con Knueppel. So it'll be really interesting to see how those results play out.
Yeah, really good insight there from Sam. By the way, go to LegalSportsReport.com to read about that story, the story we're going to discuss next, and everything else, which includes the amount of men who have sports betting accounts between the ages of 18 and 49. I think it should come to no surprise that over 50%, Sam, according to this report that you can read online on your website, says that most, or at least the majority of individuals have sports betting websites. And I wonder that if we did this same poll next year and included prediction markets, it could even be a little bit higher, I would imagine.
Yeah, it definitely seems like prediction markets, along with just the trend in betting, are adding to this environment where you have more young men betting on sports. Siena Research did this poll that came out this week saying that about 53% of men 18 to 49 have at least one betting account. So that's pretty telling. If you walk down the street and grab a guy who looks like he's under 50, they'll probably have a sports betting account, which is just quite a different landscape than we had, even just a few years ago, and certainly, before 2020, before sports betting legalization. really took off. So this poll tracked, a lot of statistics that show that sports betting in general is more popular among young men, and it's just growing in popularity overall. Some of the really interesting numbers I thought were the behavioral numbers they looked at. They said about 60% of bettors reported chasing losses over the past year, which is up from 52% last year. So that's definitely something that gets thrown around a lot when you talk about the rise of sports betting, also potentially being a public harm, public health risk, something that companies are obviously trying to take into account, or at least people are pressuring them to. It said 63% of respondents reported betting over $100 at least in one day, which is also up from last year. And then 31% said that someone had expressed concern about their gambling habits, which is up 23% from last year. So we're seeing, as sports betting is continuing to rise, that some of the potential issues around it are rising too. And these companies are having to deal with that. You have several lawmakers have introduced bills across states in Congress to potentially curb some of the problematic activity. In some cases, like in Ohio, we talked about last week, to potentially end online sports betting. And then obviously the prediction market stuff is really interesting as well. About 65% of respondents said that they think prediction markets should be regulated the same way as sports books. So we're seeing that while that activity is growing, the people on it think that perhaps it should have the same gambling protections, same structure, same overall oversight, which has definitely been a big centerpiece of the lawsuits between the states and the prediction markets and the CFTC and everything else. So it's really interesting to see, the sports betting on the rise. But again, some of the more problematic activities around it and the public perception also changing as well, as the industry continues to develop and will continue to over the next couple of years.
Yep. And speaking of which, we'll end with prediction markets, Sam. And certainly it does appear that the CFTC is going to push forward with some sort of regulations, but at this point, a lot of talk, not a lot of action. We'll find out what that means over the coming year.
Yeah, it's been more talk, not a lot of action from the CFTC in terms of regulating prediction markets. The chair of the CFTC, which again is the federal agency that is tasked with the oversight of financial derivatives markets, which are companies like Kalshi and Polymarket. More specifically, their sports event contracts, which there's a large group saying that is sports betting and the CFTC should not be able to regulate it. The CFTC is now suing 3 states saying it should. So more talk about how it's going to increase its defense over regulating them, and let's talk about actually what it's going to do to regulate it and prevent some of the problematic issues.
All right, Sam, thanks again. Have a good weekend. Appreciate you coming on. We'll see you Friday.
Thanks, Greg.